I remember being young, and the disfellowshipping was not shunning. Disfellowshipping was being taken. You're out of the congregation, but you were not shunned. You basically were not allowed to speak about spiritual things to those people that were disfellowshipped. I can remember being young, and there was a teenager in our congregation who was disfellowshipped. I didn't understand it. My mom told me that basically he was cast out right now, and we could not discuss anything biblical with him. But we could still be nice to him. We could still talk to him. Those rules all changed when Ray Franz left.
What do you mean they changed?
His Uncle Fred decided that someone who was disfellowshipped could not be spoken to at all, had to be treated as if they were dead. You could not even acknowledge a person at that point until they were reinstated back into the congregation. That was not the original way that disfellowship people were treated. Remember, disfellowshipping wasn't even a practice from Jehovah's Witnesses until the 50s. So for 25 years, it was a practice where someone who was disfellowshipped was not to have any spiritual contact with you. But you could still acknowledge the person, you could still talk to them, you could still...
I did that whole video on disfellowshipping, and I showed how they completely changed it in 1952, how they went after the Catholic Church because of their excommunication practices, and how they would shun somebody because they didn't want to be a Catholic anymore. Then in 1952, Nor brought that back in. But what was the difference between the disfellowshipping then and the disfellowshipping after France? Just repeat that.
Well, remember, I was young, but the way I remember it was that you did not completely shun somebody who was disfellowshipped. You still could actually still be friends with them. You just were not allowed to speak about anything on a spiritual level. That you couldn't talk to somebody and talk to them about the meeting. You couldn't talk to them about the latest Watchtower. You couldn't talk about anything like that, but you could still have association with them.
So what do you think they're going to do now? Because of all the court cases, with the France court case going on, with Norway, with Brazil, with all of these different countries that are now going after them because of the shunning practice and because of the way they completely disown somebody just because they no longer want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. What do you think they're going to go back to?
Would not surprise me at all if they didn't go back to that practice. Remember, if you watch the practice of basically being disfellowshipped on a spiritual level, but not on a level where you're completely shunned. Remember, when you watch the court cases, and everybody looks at these lawyers and they're thinking, these guys aren't telling the truth. Well, in a way they are, because in a way they're giving the old practice.
With Mr. Wall, the elders came to the decision that Mr. Wall was not sufficiently repentant for his disgraceful conduct, and the congregation elders took the decision to disfellowship him. That word is used by Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses don't use the word shun or shunning. They refer to it as disfellowship, disfellowshipping, disfellowshipped, because that really gives the sense of what's taking place within this particular religious community. Disfellowship literally means no further spiritual fellowship with the individual. And as I point out, sorry, Chief Justice? As I point out at paragraph 22 of my factum, the nature of the relationship then of a disfellowship person is not completely shunned. The disfellowship person is able to come into the congregation, to the congregation meetings. They're able to attend in the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're able to sit wherever they like. They can sing the spiritual songs with the congregation. As far as their family members are concerned, normal family relations continue with the exception of spiritual fellowship.
The old practice was that you'd still have normal family relations with one of your children, one of your cousins, one of your friends. You just were not allowed to discuss spiritual things. I can see them going back to that, saying, you know, we're not going to shun anymore. We're not going to completely disown these people, but we're not allowed to talk about spiritual things with them.
Do you think that's the reason why they got rid of disfellowship? That means you're not going to have any fellowship with them anymore, and now it's just removed from the congregation, because removed from the congregation means they're no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but you can still associate with them. Right. Do you think they're going back to that?
It's entirely possible.
Disfellowship literally means no further spiritual fellowship with the individual. As far as their family members are concerned, normal family relations continue with the exception of spiritual fellowship.
Like I said, I was very young in the 60s and the 70s, but this is what I remember that a disfellowship person was. It was somebody that you did not discuss anything biblical, anything spiritual with them.
I think that would be so wonderful for everybody if they were able to just leave and not be able to talk about spiritual things with their family anymore, but still be able to talk to their families. How amazing and how smart would the organization be if they did that?
Well, it would definitely stop a lot of the lawsuits.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
Throughout all the different countries.
Yep.
That's going to happen until they get rid of this complete shunning practice. If somebody decides they don't want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses anymore, and they say, okay, that's your decision, we will no longer talk about anything spiritual, but we can still have normal family relationships, which is what that one attorney said in court.
Yep. So
everything will be fine.
In other words, you would be allowed to actually leave, which you're not now.
And still have your family.
Yeah.
You can stop believing in a man-made organization and still have communication with your family, and not have your family think you're a horrible person that Satan's gotten a hold of and they want nothing to do. And that's what this organization has done, and that's why they're being sued around the world, and that's why they need to change. And if they just change that one simple thing, that you cannot talk about spiritual matters anymore, I'm good with that. Wouldn't you be good with that?
I'd be fine with that.
I think everybody would be good with that. Why do you think they're going to go back to the old way, what they did with only being spiritual? You can't talk about spiritual matters.
Well, I think it makes perfect sense, considering all the different problems they're having around the world with governments, and so much of it has to do with the shunning. So I think it would be a pretty easy transition for them to make. You know, they did the same thing with not being able to have a beard, with not being able to clink glasses, with counting time.
Exactly.
And the way they explained all of these things is that the governing body has on further
decided,
concluded, that these things weren't actually biblical. They basically came out and said there's nothing that's biblical about not having a beard. There's nothing biblical about counting time.
I know, but how do you think they'll be able to get rid of their complete shunning practice? Because they've been, for the last 40 years, since the 80s, since France, they have made it so that you cannot talk to somebody who does not want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses anymore.
They will present it as it's in Jehovah's time. They have decided, the governing body has decided that this practice of shunning is not in Jehovah's, what he wants now. It's what he wanted then. It's not what he wants now. And what they're going to do is come up with what they're going to call new light, when it's basically the
Old
same.
light.
It's old light. It's a regurgitation of an old practice. The same way they did a lot of other things.
Like they have recently.
Yep.
But they're going to frame it so that it's... How are they going to frame it?
Well, I think you know as well as I do, they don't have to do a lot of framing.
Right.
Most witnesses will just accept it as a loving arrangement. And they'll say how amazing it is that Jehovah is now allowing us to speak to those family members who are no longer Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's what they've recently done, though. It's up to your conscience whether you want to say hello to somebody.
I'm talking about having an actual relationship with the person. I'm talking about being friends with somebody who was disfellowshipped. I'm talking about somebody who's in the family who now you're free to sit down and have a meal with, to go fishing with, to do things with, as long as you don't discuss spiritual things.
Like they did 40 years ago.
Same thing.
They really are tricky dickies, aren't they?
You know, they do an amazing amount of word salad. They come up with brand new explanations for words that we've used all of our lives. Let's not even talk about generation.
That's true. I've been after Thorne to talk to me like this in a conversation. So make sure you let him know what you think about our conversation in the comments. Do you think they're going to go backwards? Do you think they're just going to go back to a time where if somebody's disfellowshipped or disassociated or leaves the organization, that we just won't be able to talk about spiritual matters? We'll still be able to have normal relationships with them? What do you think they're going to do? We don't know until it happens, but it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen within the next, 5 to 10 years. Make sure to let me know in the comments. And make sure to keep looking beyond the Watchtower organization for truth. To see what they have actually done, to see what they are actually teaching, to see what they're actually doing to all witnesses around the world. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourself, please, and keep searching.